Hi there, welcome back to my channel. My name is Bonnie and I am continuing to pour wisdom into your life. We are carrying on this journey of the Hunter-Gatherer's Guide to the 21st Century. And once again, I have notes because the chapters are so dense and they have so many good nuggets that I don't think that I can just off the cuff share what I'm learning. I have to make some notes, reread the chapters, and then kind of go from there. So this is chapter 4, and they are talking about medicine. So particularly modern medicine in the context of evolutionary biology. And they start off with one of the authors, Heather, an experience that she has with a sore throat. And she goes to the doctor, and her doctor wants her to take medicine. And she asks why. And they say, oh, well, in some cases of whatever laryngitis, let's say, I can't remember if it was exactly laryngitis. In some cases, this medicine is helpful. And she said, okay, well, how are those cases similar to mine? And why was it helpful? So, asking some basic questions. And she didn't get a satisfying answer. And so she didn't take the medicine. And then because of that, she was kind of labeled as non-compliant, and she had this recurring throat issue, and no one could give her a satisfying answer, and she wasn't following the advice because she wasn't just taking the medicine just because without understanding why, and that was kind of it. And then eventually it resolved and no one could tell her why. So they start off with that little vignette, and what the purpose of the chapter is to help give us a framework for how we can think about medicine and our bodies and how we can take care of ourselves and use stuff that is beneficial to us, but understand the risks and the harms on the other side and where maybe not such a novel approach is warranted. Okay, so a couple things to read verbatim. They introduce a concept called reductionism. And we in the West, and certainly myself in how I went through university and how I sort of like to educate myself, I fall prey to reductionism kind of all the time. And I'm only just starting now to really step back and look at the big picture. But reductionism is this idea that we want to reduce things to the easily observable and easily measurable parts, and then we'll understand it. And we've gotten really, really good at that. We really can reduce things down and we can see interconnected things. And that gives us the illusion that we really understand the whole thing. And they go through why that is not always the greatest approach. And they give lots of examples. And then as I was reading it, I was thinking of examples that I even know in myself. So for one, there was a cane beetle problem in Australia that I learned about while I was living there. And the solution to this cane beetle infestation was to bring in the cane toad, because in wherever cane toads live, Africa, continent of Africa somewhere probably, the cane toad would eat the cane beetle. Perfect, we'll bring in some predators and it'll take care of our cane beetle problem. That's not what happened. And so cane beetles live high, cane toads are lazy, they don't jump up to eat the beetles, didn't solve the beetle problem. Oh, but there's all kinds of native grasses, no, not grasses, they don't eat grasses, but native fauna, various rodents that the cane toads will eat, so it's decimating their native population, and then it's didn't solve the beetle problem, and there's no predators to the cane toad. So now the cane toad is an invasive species and it's running havoc all over Australia. So well done us solving the problem with reductionist thinking. So they're introducing that concept, and they give quite a few other examples in the book about where we think that we can solve the problem, and we go in and we micromanage, and then it does not go the way that we think it does. Okay. This paragraph that I'm about to read verbatim really hit me home, and I'm going to add in another word that I have seen brought into this as well. So this is talking about medicine again. The modern approach to medicine, which can be broadly characterized as reductionist, so what we just talked about, reveals itself clearly in scientism an ill-named but important concept. The concept of scientism was introduced by 20th century economist Friedrich Hayek. He observed that too often the methods and language of science are imitated by institutions and systems not engaged in science, such that the resulting efforts are generally not scientific at all. Meaning, various other disciplines or even just the layman's people are adopting the terms of science, using them as if they're implying that they're scientific, but not actually following the principle underneath the words. For example, not only do we see words like theory and analysis wrapped around distinctly untheoretical and unanalyzed and often unanalyzable ideas, but worse, we see the rise of a kind of fake numeracy in which anything that can be counted is, and once you have measurement, you tend to forgo further analysis. And so the one that I want to add into that is the word research. All over the past couple of years, I hear people, oh, well, do your own research, or I've done my research, or something to those effects. And to me, I almost want to say as a biologist, but I'm not even a biologist. I just have a biology degree. But even someone with a biology degree, the term research means something really, really specific, right? You have to apply to get you propose an experiment, and then you apply to get it approved, and then you go through ethics approval to make sure that we're not doing unethical experimentation, which you can look back in history and see things that we did that were not so great. So you get ethics approval. Then you want to make sure that what you're testing is actually what your data is going to reflect. And then there's statistical analysis. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into conducting proper research. And so when I see someone on social media say, oh, well, I did my own research, what they actually mean is they typed into Google a question and then looked at the first three options, or the first page of options that the Google algorithm decided is what you wanted to see, which, by the way, there's all kinds of confirmation bias built into the algorithm there. Let's not talk about that. And called that research without validating where the information was coming from. There's just, hey, I'll get off the soapbox, but I have a bit of a bone to pick with the term research because it's a very specific thing. And I think that falls into this concept of scientism. So it's not just theory and analysis, also just research in general has been co-opted by the masses, and its meaning has diluted in our everyday vernacular. Okay, so that paragraph hit me very hard in this chapter. Okay, moving on from that. So this kind of reductionist idea, they equate it to the way an engineer thinks. So an engineer's style of thinking is very logical, but it's very much rules and code, and everything is very mechanistic. It's very machine-like, and everything, once you follow this, it will just work. And boom. Whereas a biologist's perspective is very, very much ecology. Ooh, hello. Ecology, systems, things working together. It's very complex. We don't really know all of these things. And so they make the argument in the chapter that medicine has suffered very much from this reductionist way of thinking and could benefit from bringing in some more evolutionary biology. I thought that was an important point. The critical error there is that we're really obsessed with finding a metric that we can measure, and then we confuse it with the metric. It's the only metric that matters. And we kind of, once we've honed in on something, we then focus in and we put blinders on, and then we stop paying attention to other things. And in my personal life, I've kind of noticed this as well, as there tends to be, and people talk about well, we want that quick pill, quick fix kind of situation. I have this problem, just fix it. And we're losing track of all of the context of why the problems are existing and things like that. And there's a bit of a swing towards functional medicine now as opposed to traditional Western medicine, which I really like. It's just more of a whole body, whole environment approach to your health. So this chapter really appealed to me. in that way. So they talk about two different styles of biology, both of which are important. So functional biology, the how, and then the evolutionary biology of the why of it. And they really think that we focused so much on the how, we've lost track of the why. And it kind of calls back to that appendix problem that I was talking about last time. And then they have another really great example of where our sort of fix-it method might actually be harming us more than it's helping us, and that's in terms of bone setting. So they talk about how the author, Brett, broke a bone, and then his son also broke a bone, and what they did in order to rectify it. And the way that we in the West like to rectify broken bones is you break a bone, and then you go to the ER, and you get some pain meds, and then it gets set in a cast, and you immobilize it until the bone can heal. And then as that's happening, all of your muscles atrophy, and then you have this out of balance, and you have to rework and go to physio and retrain your muscles because you've immobilized them for up to 6 weeks. And from an evolutionary biology perspective, before we had the ability to immobilize the bone, what would they do? Well, the animals would use pain in order to figure out how much they could use that. Then they would keep it still, and if things got too painful, they would stop what they were doing, and then the bones would heal. And so the authors took that approach. Instead of immobilizing it, they would splint it, or they would put it in a bit of a cast early, brace? Yeah, they would take a brace, so they could take it on and off and test it out. And in their, granted, sample size of 2, right, the dad and then the son, they found that they were able to recover a lot quicker than if they had immobilized it in a cast for weeks. Of course, if you have shattered the bone or something, quite horrendous, it won't work as much as a simple break. If you have a clean break and the bone is still lined up, it'll likely heal. Whereas if you've completely shattered it or it's totally misaligned, okay, now it's not going to heal and you do need the intervention. So that's kind of the theme of this whole book, this whole chapter, is to look at what the problem is, and do we need to use Western medicine to help us because this problem is quite severe? Or is the evolutionary approach and how we've done things historically going to be sufficient without introducing more problems along the way? And so they end the chapter with some tips and tricks on how to put this into your life. And I really liked this one, and I want to end my video with this one. So they have this guiding question. In environments similar to mine, did people suffer prior to modern medicine? So this thing that I have going on, did people back in the day also have this problem? If the answer is yes, they had this problem and they couldn't figure out what the solution was, then perhaps a novel solution from Western medicine is what we need. And you can go and explore, what are we doing right now and what's working? If the answer is no, this is a new problem, it's a problem of affluence because we're too clean, or because our diet has changed, or we're living a sedentary lifestyle, or all of these things that are causing problems, what we should do instead is look to history and tradition and myth to see why people living in my same environment didn't suffer from this problem. What were they doing differently, and how can I adopt some of those practices to further my health? So I really like this chapter. I've just heard a crash, so I'm going to end the video right there because the dog or the cat or the 2-year-old watching TV, something has happened. And I will tune in next week with chapter 5 with some more fascinating facts for you. Have a magical day. Bye.